Going to hit play. Ha! There it is. Um, I have so much fun doing this stuff. Uh, so I need to tell you all straight off the top, what I know about the Bhagavad Gita is what I've crammed in the last few weeks or so. I mean, I've had copies of the Bhagavad Gita sitting in my bookshelves for 40 years, though, but they've all kind of gone yellow. But I hate to say it, but I haven't really read any of it in years, or never really fully appreciated it. So this was an exciting opportunity for me to explore something I love. So let's start off with a bang. Some, some of you may remember, we want to look a little bit first at the significance of the Bhagavad Gita for today. And I'm sure probably all of you saw Oppenheimer and that moment when in the film, Oppenheimer remembered the lines from the Bhagavad Gita saying, "Now I am death, the destroyer of worlds." Uh, and I can't even read the rest of this. It's sort of I don't know how to get it over here, but Oppenheimer was a tremendous fan of the Bhagavad Gita. Of all things, he even learned Sanskrit to be able to read it. So it really played a big role in his life. And another contemporary who you all know uh, also turned to the Bhagavad Gita many occasions. You can probably read this better than I can. For some reason, some of it's off my screen. And you see at the bottom, he says, I've made the Bhagavad Gita as the source of my inspiration and guide for the purpose of scientific investigation and formation of my theories. I mean, that's truly amazing. I mean, we all think this is a nice little holy scripture, but obviously Einstein read it on a whole other level. Another person who refers to the Bhagavad Gita all the time, uh, Mahatma Gandhi. And you can see he says, when doubts haunt me and disappointments stare me in the face. I'm sorry, it's part of the quote has been cut off, but you guys can all read it. And he turns to the Bhagavad Gita to derive meaning in his life. And he would read it all the time on his fast days and applied it. So much of what we know of the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita in his life of nonviolence, of um, holding God in the forefront all the time, doing one's duty. A lot of that we can trace to the Bhagavad Gita. Even Martin Luther King loved the Bhagavad Gita um, and would quote from it. And then we
You
get a little
like me to
more.
read it, Peter? Go
Oh,
back. Or too much crazy?
I think that last one wasn't even a quote on the Bhagavad Gita per se. And then we come a little bit more up to speed to date. Jim Carrey, I don't know if many of you know it, has no longer makes films. He has gone on a whole spiritual journey. He's a great enthusiast of Eckhart Tolle and has taught with him, and he loves the Bhagavad Gita. And then I stumbled across this the other day. Who would guess? Uh, Here's someone else we all know who, um, as he says, Will Smith says he channels his inner Arjuna when he gets in trouble. And, these are recent uh, folks, but we go way back to Henry David Thoreau, who many years ago discovered the Bhagavad Gita, saying, "In the morning, I bathe my intellect in the stupendous philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita. By comparison, our modern world and its literature seem puny and trivial." And here we see 10,000 Indian Americans in the US reciting the Bhagavad Gita in a group. All this to say that in America, around the world, like there's 1.2 billion Hindus in the world. And for many of them, the Bhagavad Gita is a central focus in their life. And then we have people like Alan Watts and Ram Dass who have shared their insights on the Bhagavad Gita. When Ram Dass went to teach at Naropa Institute in 1974, he spent 2 months preparing for his talks on the Bhagavad Gita. He went off to the desert to study the Bhagavad Gita because he didn't feel he was up to speed. I think I should have spent another couple of months. And his talks that summer at Naropa were pretty well all on the Bhagavad Gita. Oops, sorry, going the wrong way here. And I think this is one of the YouTube tapes that Emily will be showing us later on that has teachings from Ram Dass and Alan Watts. So what is the Bhagavad Gita? Literally translated, it means the song of God. Gita means song, Bhagavad meaning referring to God. It's an epic mystical poem about life, death, love, and duty. It covers it all, I can tell you. And it was written some 2,500 years ago. This is kind of at the time of the Buddha. Nobody's quite sure when. And consists of about 700 verses set in the framework of a dialogue between Prince Arjuna and Lord Krishna. So what I found exciting when I started looking at it is that the Gita is a practical guide to living a spiritual life while staying fully active in the world. There's so many parallels to Buddhism, but some of it will be obvious as we go on. It's about how to go beyond pain and sorrow and find inner peace. Most of all, many would say that the Gita is about, should we say, the highest prize of them all, how to attain self-realization in this lifetime. So there are many theories. You can't imagine how many people write about the dating, the writing of the Gita, who did it, why, when. It's thought that this sage Vidyasa wrote the Bhagavad Gita. Who knows? He also did a whole thing of writing down all the Vedas. He was a great sage. Who knows whether some of this wasn't channeled through him? But it was thought to be written down about the 5th century or 4th century BCE. And my understanding is that a lot of it was passed down through oral traditions because obviously there's no printing presses. There might have been 1 or 2 manuscripts around, but not many people would have access to manuscripts. And so it was passed on orally from generation to generation. And the fact that it was sung or as a song or chant, uh, from what I can see, that was a way that made it easier for those listening to it to remember it. Over the years, there has been uh, so many different publications on excerpts, um, different versions of it. And some of these early manuscript versions had beautiful artwork that went with them. Here you see one of, you can see Lord Krishna in the chariot, who he's the blue one, and next to him is Prince Arjuna. So just to complicate matters a little further, the the Bhagavad Gita is just one section of this epic called the Mahabharata, uh, and it's only a small part of it. It's like, I think in chapter 6, it has like, or it's in book 6 of the Mahabharata, which is this amazing epic that summarizes the Vedas and has the Ramayana in it as well. Um, so just to try and put it in a bigger perspective. So, what is the story? Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with it. Um, it's a time when uh, the two warring factions are about to go into battle. There's the Pandavas. Lord Krishna was a Pandava, um, and the Kauravas were the opposing forces. They had done some really pretty nasty things. And both armies are lined up. I love these visuals, are lined up, uh, ready to go into battle the next morning. And Krishna's in his chariot and he's in despair. Because a lot of the people on the opposing side are his family, his friends, his teachers, and he thinks that the idea of going in to kill them is horrible, and he goes into despair. And it's not that he wasn't a great warrior. Krishna was one of the greatest warriors of all time and a fearless soul, but he questioned what his duty was at this point, and he calls upon Krishna to help uh, help him find a way through this. Um, and when reading the Bhagavad Gita, or even enjoying this amazing story of these two big sides going into battle where thousands will be killed, that basically the story here is not so much about external battles. It's more an inner journey of our inner battles, of what we all of us uh, face in life. It's a struggle for the mind, the heart, the spirit, and what our duty is. And just as with the inner battle, this is kind of a fight to the death. And of course, the battle does take place. Uh, Lord Vishnu reminds Arjuna that he has a duty here, gets him to see the bigger picture, that he has to stand up and fight. Um, the Gita is just broken down into 18 different chapters. And the first one is the despondency of Arjuna, where he he calls upon Krishna, and in the chariot they go out to the middle of the battlefield and have this incredible dialogue. The second chapter is Sankhya Yoga or Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. So each of these 18 chapters break down different ways of seeing the world, of seeing our spiritual journey. The third chapter is Karma Yoga, the yoga of selfless service, of path of action. So as a scripture, it's amazing because it goes through all these different questions that we have about our own inner journey and how to serve. And just as an example, at one point, Arjuna asked Krishna, "What is happiness?" And Krishna says, "The mind is restless and difficult to restrain, but it is subdued by practice." So we see, this is, to me, always brings up so many parallels with Buddhist thought. Krishna is saying we need to practice to calm our mind. And that practice can lead to the end of suffering and happiness that arises from the serenity of one's own mind. So you can see that it's very similar to the teachings that we dive into every day. And love is the key that unlocks the door to eternal bliss and liberation. And just as with our studies of Buddhism, we see that what prevents us from coming to that serenity, or what's called in the Gita the three gates to hell, desire, greed, and anger, which just very much the same as our Buddhist qualities of greed, hatred, and delusion, which are what are the hindrances. So finally, it gets to chapter 18, which is liberation through knowledge, knowing, acting, and loving. And basically, the whole Gita is asking the question, what is the meaning of life? And what I find intriguing, and it's mentioned several times in the Gita, that the true goal of life, as according to Lord Vishnu, is nothing short of merging with the divine consciousness itself. So it gives us a whole prescription on how to awaken, how to spiritually awaken if we read it on that level. And so you can see there's a lot in here, and a lot more than I thought. I thought it was just a story of some guy didn't want to go to battle and what happened then. But you can see there's multiple layers to this. And I believe that our dear friend, our dear friend Emily is now going to share some wonderful